Time to go. Off 3. 1, 2, 3. In this video I'm going to show you how to effectively bind an arrowhead onto the tip of the shaft and put some fletchings on in a way that I would describe a typical Bronze Age arrow to be formed. So to start off down here, what we're going to be needing is we're going to be needing our processed tendon, some shafts which I've prepared out of ash, some arrowheads, a glue stick, feathers and a knife. So if you're picking a shaft straight from the tree, then what you could do is make a notch in a piece of wood to clean and remove all the bark, and that will effectively help the arrow to dry much faster and allow you to manage to straighten it while it's drying. Nice thing about a notch is that maintains its size, so it helps to remove any wood as well as the bark in the perfect form of the arrow, keeping it continual throughout its length. Trouble is when they're so green, they've got no spine in them, so you wouldn't be able to use that straight away and expect it to fly where you want it to. So these shafts that I'm going to use have been dried and stored and they're ready to go. So my technique for putting the arrowhead into the shaft is, in the first place, find the centre of the stick and begin a small slot just by rocking. There we go, that's just started that crack there, which will be where the arrowhead's going to go in. Then either side of that we're going to cut away the material to leave two flattened ears. If you leave them flat, you maintain the strength of the shaft behind it, and that means that you're not just going to lose your arrowhead on impact. Okay. So now we'll just make a simple test to see how our arrowhead fits on there. Doesn't feel too bad, but it's still a bit chunky either side, so I'm going to remove them ends until they're perfectly sharp, and then there'll be no bump behind the impact of the arrow. Okay, so I'm good with that now. So the next thing to do is warm our glue stick up down in our fire here. And basically just run it all over the end of the arrow shaft. And if you can, get a blade in there to open that so that you can run some glue in there as well. You're going to notice it's going to be going off as it cools down, but that's fine, because what we can do now is we've transferred the glue onto the shaft, so we can literally rotate the shaft and really make that wet, and now re-offer that arrowhead into it. It's at this point we want to get some bindings. I haven't done anything other than extract this from the tendon cord, and what I like to do is just pass the first section into the groove with the arrowhead itself, and that locks it all in nice and tightly. Go up behind them barbs, helping to grasp that tangle. And now what I'm going to do is just push down all of the resin over the top of that binding to lock it all into place. And finally, for the tip, just reheat your glue stick and just drizzle a little bit onto the flint itself where it meets the other resin. Creating a perfect bind between the two components. And you can just give your arrowhead a quick spin near that flame, just binding it all up nice and tight. Sweep away any resin that you don't want. Resin's a little bit hot, so you need to be a bit careful as you go. So how to do your arrow fletchings. Firstly, pick two feathers which are from the same wing, so they bend in the same direction. Come up to the part of the quick where it leaves the fletch and cut through the back of it so you create a flat, thin section of fletch. And just chop them down so they're about an inch in length beyond that point. That's good. So now offer this feather, bring it away from the tip a little bit, and consider that with the arrowhead being flat, you're going to make the fletch parallel to that. So when you actually put it into the bow, the arrowhead is going to be upright. Now, observing at the point where this is going to be attached, what I'm going to do with that section is I'm going to come to the side of the shaft and I'm going to put a small little cut there, flip it over, keeping that section of material intact, and the same on the opposite side. And in the area where again we're going to place a little bit of glue, offer the fletch into it, then we're going to get a bit more glue, offer it around that point, and then begin to whip over the top of that. And then use your fingers just to blend that lot down nice and smooth. So that section's done now. Just to keep the guidance going at the back, what we're going to do is we're going to find a small amount of thin tendon and drop it into fletching. And tie that off. I'll keep the back of the shaft stable. I find that if you don't do that, they like to wander about. The arrow tends to try and figure eight a bit at the back end. Just lock that knot off with a bit more resin. And then just move them round into the correct position for yourself. Outside that, we just need a groove for the string, and that's a repetition of just cutting from either side on the end, taking care, because if you slip you're obviously going to come away with a nice cut on your finger. A groove has always been one of the most complicated things to get into the end of a piece of wood with a flint tool. So just before we finish this, I'm going to show you a technique on a piece of green wood that you could also apply, which is going to help you give a deeper notch. So that arrow, I think, is a serviceable item now. So if we needed a notch in this piece of wood, what you can do is you can cut across and put a little V in, turn it completely over, cut across and put another V in, come down however long or deep you want your notch, put another V in on both sides. This works better on green wood than it does on dry wood. And you can deepen the notches as to exactly how broad you want your notch to be cut. Then just offer your knife in and release the timber on either side. Rock that shaft, and that will leave you a nice little notch. So there we go. All these bits and pieces that you've seen me working with are available on my site. You can get the arrowhead making kits, the cordage making kits, the knives, and quite good fun. Thanks for watching.